circumstances. We're almost there. If we can hang on just a little bit longer, we're almost there. Well, May happens to be one of my favorite months. I mean, it is my birthday month, but that's not the real reason. Do you remember, I'm showing my age now, which I do often, I don't know why, but did you make May baskets when you were little? We used to make them out of construction paper, and we'd put them on the neighbors' doorknobs, and we'd have candy or little gifts in them. Wasn't that fun? People don't do that anymore, I don't think. May is also about Mother's Day. And next week we'll have a special guest, Victoria Lee. Most of you know Victoria. She's a delightful woman, and I think you'll all enjoy being here next week. And also, growing up Catholic, of course, May was the month of Mary. And I'm surprised when other people didn't do that growing up because it was so much a part of my childhood. But every May we would put altars up. And we would put a statue of Mary, and then we would bring apple blossoms because our farm was full of apple blossoms, and lilacs, and the little lilies of the valley, remember those? So we had all the flowers up the whole month of May. Now, fast forwarding, we just returned, from Arizona a year and a half ago, and in Arizona they celebrated May 5th, Cinco De Mayo. Have you heard of Cinco De Mayo? Very southwest, it's celebrated all over. And most people confuse it with the Day of the Dead, but it's not. It's a totally different day. We'll do that celebration in November if you want to come back for that. I hope you come back sooner than November, but I'm trying to give you incentive, okay? The Cinco de Mayo was celebrating the victory of an impossible battle between the French Empire and the Mexican nation. Now, I know it's hard to imagine the French and the Mexicans doing battle. It's hard nowadays to think of that. But it was called the Battle of Puebla, May 5th, 1862. Can you imagine? And they have battle reenactments, just like in America, how we do the Civil War reenactments. Anybody been to a Civil War reenactment? Yeah, a few of you have. I was side tripping here, but I was asked to do a wedding once and a Civil War reenactment. And the biggest concern I had was, what do you wear to a Civil War? That was the biggest decision. Anyway, I digress. So Cinco de Mayo then is about parades and food and folk dancing and colorful. And so we join this week with our lovely Mexican neighbors in celebration of Cinco de Mayo. And when we lived in Tucson, I don't know if I've told you this story before, one of the difficulties in an older minister is I tend to repeat myself, and I'm hoping that you forget as quickly as I do. But Michael and I celebrated one year by going to a place called Monsoon Chocolate. And do you remember the movie Chocolat, where she was making hot chocolate and it was like liquid chocolate she was pouring? Well, they had Mexican chocolate and they were pouring it into this cup, and I had mine with half coffee and half chocolate. And I tell you, I have ascended into heaven, and the streets are not paved with gold, they're paved with chocolate. I can tell you that for sure. Oh, it was heavenly. But the reason I bring this all up is because talking about a battle, why am I doing that? Well, biblically, we celebrate battles too. The Old Testament is full of them, and so many people say, well, if it's all about God and love, how come there's so much killing in the Old Testament? Well, we read them metaphysically. They're battles of consciousness that we're continuously doing. When you come here and we get truth, we receive the truth, and it does battle with everything in our minds that doesn't believe it or doesn't want to accept it. And we're constantly having battles in our consciousness. And the final battle of Armageddon is when we have released and surrendered and the full Christ consciousness rises up. Won't that be a joyous final battle? Well, that's a battle I can get behind. So I asked you today, how's your current state of mind working for you? How many battles of consciousness have you been through this week? Any fear, any anger, judgment? We can't heal from the current state of mind that created our life. And so we're constantly having to surrender and go to that higher thought, that higher state of mind that fully embraces that Christ consciousness. And it's a journey. I know I'm sure not there yet. I go back and forth and back and forth. I get dizzy some days. But the great Reverend Eric Butterworth once said, every destructive thought is a killing thought. When we permit ourselves to go on emotional binges, anybody been on an emotional binge of anger, hatred, bitterness, and fear, there's no dodging it. We must pay the hidden luxury tax of negative thinking. Oops. In other words, you can't have your pet peeve and have peace of mind as well. All together now, oh darn, together, oh darn. And that includes righteous anger, because we also have the right to get stomach ulcers. You know, that's righteousness. And it sounds harsh, but the law will not be mocked. The law of cause and effect. It rains on the good and bad alike. What we put out there shows up, comes back on us like a boomerang. And the Bible is full of battles that we know are really battles of our mind. The evolution of human consciousness has had so many battles, and it's still going on. That's why Paul said, I die daily. You know, I have to keep surrendering that separation thinking, that fear-based thinking, to embrace the truth. Die to that old state of mind that no longer serves me. Man, that's a continuous battle, is it not? Anybody here made it yet to where your eyes are that? If not, I'll change places, sorry. God, I was hoping I could sit down. And I love it when even Jesus did the battles, and he said to the apostles when they didn't want him to go to Jerusalem, get behind me, Satan. Don't put that fear on me. Get behind me. That's what we say to those fear-based thoughts. Thoughts of separation, fear, get behind me. And then we replace that with thoughts of love and union, togetherness, one presence, one power. The Father and I are one, as Jesus said. I am in you and you are in me. There's an old Chinese proverb. A man may not be able to prevent birds from flying over his head, but he has a right to determine whether they make nests in their hair. You know, those thoughts, those birds, metaphysically, are thoughts that are storming around here. Just don't let them build a nest. Just don't build a condo with them. One of my old favorite TV series, I don't even think they show it on reruns anymore, is Picket Fences. Remember Picket Fences? It was a delightful show about a sheriff, Sheriff Brockett, and he was in a small Wisconsin city. And he had a very traditional view of God. And he wanted to keep that God away from him. He didn't go to church. He didn't even like to talk about God. He said, it's safer having God out there away from us, but I don't want that God in the same room with me. And you know what? The old traditional idea of God, I don't want in the same room with me either. Watching over me, judging me, punishing me. No, that's not. Get behind me, we say. Because the real God is the God of oneness, light, love, peace. I would rebel against that old idea of what God is too, and we're constantly having to do battle with who am I, what is God, what is the relationship here, until we awaken to that full Christ consciousness. We've been so programmed. We'll win the battle eventually, but we've been so programmed, and we have to be willing to let go of the battles, and especially in projecting them on each other. Anybody here projected on anybody this week? Gotten upset with it? Gotten your buttons pushed this week, huh? Even churches are bad at this. And there's a great story, and I apologize again if I've shared this before, but it's one of my favorite. It's about the two churches who were across the street from each other, and they had their signs like Charlie does up here with our church sign, and they were having a battle of words on their church signs. Our Lady of Martyrs Catholic Church was doing battle with Beulah Presbyterian. And the first day, Our Lady of Martyrs put a sign up, all dogs go to heaven. Must have been after the movie, all dogs go to heaven. Beale Presbyterian didn't like that, and they put up a sign, "Only humans go to heaven, read the Bible." Our Lady of Martyrs, not to be outdone, put up a sign, "God loves all his creations, dogs included." Beale Presbyterian, starting to get a little testy now. "Dogs don't have souls. This is not open for debate." Our Lady of Martyrs followed, "Catholic dogs go to heaven. Presbyterian dogs can talk to their pastors." They come back, huh? Beale Presbyterian, "Converting to Catholicism does not magically grant your dog a soul." Our Lady of Martyrs replied, "Free dog souls with conversion." Beale Presbyterian, "Dogs are animals and there aren't any rocks in heaven either." Our Lady of Martyrs, "All rocks go to heaven." Now, I love that because we go back and forth with each other, don't we? Projecting, doing those battles. Obviously, they've never read the Course in Miracles, right, Kelly? Do you want to be right or do you want to be at peace? How many would rather be right? And how many would rather, well, a few, yeah, pat ourselves in the back. Or do you want to be at peace? So again, who have you been doing battle this week? Who have you been projecting on? And the battle of Armageddon, it's all in our minds until we know, as God said to Moses, "Take off your shoes. The very place you stand is holy." Oh, I get goosebumps saying that. Take off your shoes. Shoes metaphysically mean take off the blocks of whatever is keeping you from knowing your union with God and each other. Release, surrender those blocks to love's presence. Take off your shoes, for the very place you stand is holy ground. Ooh, I love that line. And then once you're healed, and the battle is over, and you've surrendered to the higher knowing, maybe you'll have an experience like R.M. I don't know if it's Bucky or Buke. He wrote Cosmic Consciousness. Remember back in the 80s? Did you all read Cosmic Consciousness? He had an experience, and I always envy people that have had these real experiences. You know, I've had a few hints, I've had a few tinklings, but let me read you his because it's so fun. "I had spent an evening in a great city with two friends reading and discussing poetry and philosophy. I had a long drive home in a cab. My mind was calm and peaceful. And all at once, without warning of any kind, I found myself wrapped in a flame-colored cloud. And for an instant I thought of fire, but I knew the fire was in myself. Directly afterward, there came upon me a sense of exaltation, of immense joyousness, accompanied by, or immediately followed by, an intellectual illumination impossible to describe. Among other things, I did not merely come to believe, but I saw that the universe is not composed of dead matter, but is, on the contrary, a living presence. I became conscious in myself of eternal life. I saw that the cosmic order is such that without any uncertainty, all things work together for the good of each and all, and that the foundation of the world is love. The vision lasted a few seconds and was gone, but the memory of it and the sense of reality it left has remained. I knew that what the vision showed was true, and that conviction has never been lost. So let's take that story into prayer as we allow that truth to come into our minds, into our very being. And instead of doing battle with that truth, we surrender to it. We give way to it. We allow it to fill every cell of our being with grace, with peace, with love, with that assurance that our life and world is truly unfolding as it should. And all things lead to good and take us to that higher place as we surrender and allow the grace unfolding, we once again react with gratitude and with joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In the deepest nature of the living Christ. And so it is, so it truly is. Amen.